Everybody, hello, and welcome to today's Let's Chat. I am John Brents, Director of Community here at Twitch, also a broadcaster in our space for the past 20 years and loved every minute of it. I'm so glad to see you all in the chat. Hello, everybody. Something I like to do at the start of every show is if you got that sweet dino emote, let me see it. Let me see dinos in chat to get a little hype going. I love seeing all the celebration, all the different emotes across Twitch, but if you got that dino, let me see it. Today's conversation we are going to be having with CocoConfession, an incredible variety broadcaster, a musician, and a leader for the Twitch Women's Guild. So without further ado, let's kick off. We got those dinos in chat. Let's bring Coco in here. Coco!
Hi.
How you doing? Welcome
I'm
welcome
good.
to the
I'm
Twitch
excited
page.
to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you here because we're gonna have a great conversation not only about your career path and everything that you have found over the years, but also talk a little bit about the work that you're doing with the Women's Guild. So what I like to start off with is give us a little introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself and everything that you've done to date.
Sure. I've been on Twitch for about 7 years now, and I've been doing it full time for about 6. It is the best decision I've ever made in my life was to become a full-time Twitch streamer. And I call myself super variety because I do gaming on the channel, I do music, I do cross-stitching. I'm also a speedrunner. I speedrun A Link to the Past and a super obscure Game Boy game called Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle 2, which some people know it and are like, I love that game. I played it when I was younger. And some people have no idea what it is. It's like one or the other. So I do that, and I do a lot of charity work as well. I do a lot of work for the Lupus Foundation of America, and I also this year has started raising money for Thousand Dreams Fund, which has been really great, especially with the Women's Guild. So yeah, you never know what to expect on my channel. Anything is game on my channel.
I love that. A lot of broadcasters here probably have the same, where they have a lot of interests and a lot of things that they like to create on their channel. I know I've been essentially a variety for so many years. I'm currently in the thick of Stellar Blade and exploring that one, which honestly just feels like Nier Automata, to be honest. But it's a fine game. But I love that like you speed run Link to the Past. I'm a fellow Zelda fan. I got my Triforce tat. I'm curious, was Zelda sort of like an origin game for you that got attracted into the gaming space, or like what were some of those games that really got you when you were younger?
Yeah, some of my earliest memories of gaming were of me watching my mom play Zelda. She was the gamer in our family in the very, very beginning. And I was a little too young to really understand Zelda and the complexities of the puzzles and things. But I used to sit there and I used to watch her play, and I would, where I thought I was helping, trying to help her solve the puzzles, and that was one of the coolest things for me, was to experience something with her. That was like my favorite time of night, when I could sit down with her and watch her play. I remember it was A Link to the Past and Super Mario Brothers 3. Those were the two. And just like the music and being able to connect with her through gaming was just really special to me. So growing up, I just really had an attraction to video games. And so we were a Nintendo family, so I did play a lot of Nintendo. And I just kind of played games all the way till now. I don't know. It was just like one of those things that my mom introduced me to that just kind of formed me as a gamer today. And when I started streaming on Twitch, I just had this thing where I was like, I'm gonna play A Link to the Past. I'm gonna see if I can beat it in one stream. And I did. It took me 8 hours, but I did it. And then I was like, okay, I bet you I can do better. Let's try and do it in 4 hours. And I did. And it just kind of like snowballed into speed running. And now it's like this super competitive thing that I do, but it's super fun and the community loves it. So
I love that. I love the family story of connection, because it was similar. My father used to take me to the arcades. Like I would play on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade. He'd always take me to play on that. And he had an Atari 2600, which was my first introduction back in the day. And I love that we have like these family stories of connection, and like that sort of carries into like what we do when it comes to the types of audiences that we bring into our shows, and like the ways that we introduce new games to folks or interact with them. It sort of has that family concept. So I'd love to expand on that concept of community, and like what does that mean to you, or like how do you interpret a community currently? what makes for a good community, what makes for a bad community?
Yeah, my community specifically, when I came to Twitch, I had an idea of community. I mean, obviously, you know, local communities, like the people you surround yourself with, right? And then I didn't realize the power of community until I started streaming on Twitch, and how it doesn't necessarily have to be the people around you. You can, there are people all over the world that come and watch me every day. And I think that when I started really building something on Twitch, I really wanted to create a place where people can be unapologetically themselves. They didn't have to put a mask on. Like, sometimes a lot of us mask, and because we have to fit in with
Mm,
a certain standard or an expectation, and I didn't want that. I wanted people to just kind of be themselves, and it kind of blossomed into, creating a space where, of course, we talk about safe spaces, but also honest spaces where we can
mm.
talk about tough things, or we can talk about world events, or we can kind of touch on the things that maybe are we don't really talk about on a normal basis with strangers, like politics, for example. A lot of people say, like, no politics in my chat. I welcome those conversations, with with restrictions, of course. Like, we can't be getting too wild on the politics conversation, but I do like having those conversations because they are real world events. These are things that we all experience, and they affect us, especially marginalized people. And so those are the types of things that I really value when it comes to community, those honest discussions about what really impact us as humans, and what the things that change our lives, and the things that really inspire us to be better people, or to do something that we wouldn't normally do, or those are the types of conversations that really fulfill me and make me feel like it's a real community.
Yeah, and I love the way that you kind of painted it there. Of we have the spaces that we're curating, and we can welcome in types of conversation, or say, you know what, not that type of conversation today. I guess what are some of the levers that you use on your broadcast to let people know, like, this is a space for conversating about. Like, right before the show, we were talking about there was the impact to Microsoft we heard today, of like what's happening in the gaming space. Like, is this a space where we can talk about recent events or current events? I know there's a lot of people talking about the Kendrick Drake thing happening right now on shows. So is this like, how do you approach letting your audience know what to talk about, or like what are we like focused on? Or do you have any barriers in place?
Yeah, I'm pretty open to shifting gears in conversation during streams. I mean, if I'm focused on a speed run, for example, and I'm like
Mm,
real focused, I'm on PB pace, and someone decides to come in and wants to talk about something super heavy, I just say, you know what? Would love to talk to you about this. Let's take it to the Discord, and I'd be happy to chat with you after my run. Um, so there is a time and place always for certain conversations. Most of the time I'm pretty open, especially if it's just like a just chatting day, or if we're playing a super casual game. I think that life is not always lollipops and rainbows, and sometimes we have to pretend like it is with our jobs or our families, or and I don't really like that. I want to hear what people are going through, and I want to be able to encourage people. And sometimes it's not even about giving advice or getting advice. Sometimes people just want to hear, like, oh, that sucks. You're having a bad day at your job. Like, that sucks. I'm sorry. I wish you a better day tomorrow. And sometimes
mhm.
that's enough, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And I know when it comes to a lot of the conversations that can come our way from individuals, every person carries their own, some people call it baggage. I just say experience. So every person comes in with their own experiences, and they want to find somebody to connect with. So if you're talking about a topic, or you're diving into something that they want to contribute to, they can absolutely dive into having those conversations. But if there's things that you don't want to cover, and this is me reminding to all the folks out there that are viewing and also are broadcasters, you create that space of which you want to say, you know what, this is a space where we can talk about politics, we can talk about religion, we can talk about what's happening in current events, but set the stage for when people are coming in as to what those expectations are. For example, for those of you who are just coming in right now, today's conversation is really, hearing from Coco and from you all about your experiences when it comes to broadcasting. If we're talking about something here that rings true to you, or you're like, oh, I have the similar experience, please let us know in the chat. I would love to, shout out some of you who have similar experiences on the service. You had mentioned like the curation of spaces, or saying, hey, you know what, let's hop into a Discord, or let's carry the conversation over here. You've been doing a ton of work as a leader of the Women's Guild in the curation of that space, and we're now a year young with that program, and we've seen wonderful success with events. Obviously, you just came out of an event this past weekend. You raised substantial funds on that front. Talk a little bit about like that curation of that space for women on this front.
Yeah, I think that we start with a mission and a purpose for the guild, and my co-leader Chelsea Bites, who is so wonderful, and we just work so well together. We really came together and had a very specific purpose for the guild, and that was to uplift and amplify women and femme voices on the platform. When it comes to creating equity in this space, because it's not that we want opportunities just because we are women, right? It's about getting us on the same playing field, access to the same resources, getting us in a position that we are able to grab at those opportunities because they are put in front of us. Quite often they aren't even put in front of us. So this is about not only uplifting voices, but also coming together in a safe space as a community where women can share experiences, share knowledge. It really is a hub for all of us to work on, collaboration, and to really work together to make the digital space a better place for the women that come after us. We don't want people after us to struggle like we did, right? I remember 7 years ago, and I look at 7 years ago to now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I made it, because it was hard. Even look at the evolution of Twitch and the features that we have now versus back then. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was really tough. And I'm sure that even before me, earlier than 7 years, I'm sure it was even tougher, right? So, it's really about kind of setting the tone and the precedent for the people that come after us, that we do belong here, and we do have things to offer and contribute. And I think that creating the Women's Guild is a safe haven for a lot of women on the platform when they have questions they don't know who to turn to, or they have an idea and they have been sitting on that idea for a really long time, and they've been too nervous to bring it to fruition. It's like you have this wonderful community that has your back and wants to help. And I think that is really pushing people to do more on the platform, to take risks on the platform, and to really believe in what Twitch is and what Twitch believes in. And it's been really great to see that Twitch backs these Unity guilds so much, because I think they were needed. And so I'm really, really excited. I know it's only been a year, and I'm just so excited to see what we do in the next few years, because we've done so much already.
Yeah. Well, there's many plans and many things that can come forward. And I really love you touching on the concept of equity. Yes, there are plenty of opportunities out there in the space, but in something that I think, honestly, I think every person in this room has probably had an experience, and those who are watching, of a table has been assembled, or a group has been assembled, and you're not invited to that table, and you feel like, oh, I am not being presented with the chance to have my stuff being shown, or to showcase my greatest skill sets and be a part of conversation. And I know with the Twitch Unity guilds, that's effectively like curating spaces for individuals who've been historically impacted by this, by not being at the table, being not a part of the conversation, and encouraging effectively a banding together of not only sharing of information, lifting one another up. Because truly, and this is something that is true in the space, is if more of us succeed, it further legitimizes this space for all of us. And so being a part of that conversation and being open to having individuals join your own tables, if you're a broadcaster, having somebody join you in your show, if you're a part of a collective look at, are there additionals that we can bring in that would better benefit us to grow? Those are all things you should be thinking about as a broadcaster, because the journey is not solo, and it never will be solo. And I don't want any broadcaster out there feeling like they're stuck on an island. And I know for years, many individuals felt as if they were, and they had to kind of scramble to try to figure those things out. I guess I'd love to hear from like your personal experience, because obviously you're working on the guilds front. You're obviously maintaining on your own channel front. When it comes to opportunity seeking, like, how do you think about that when it comes to either connecting with a sponsor, securing a sponsor, all those types of things? Like, how are you thinking about approaching that on your own front?
Yeah, I think you know, you have to be a good advocate for yourself. And sometimes that's hard. Sometimes the hardest thing is how to hype yourself up, you're hyping up
Mm-hmm.
everybody else. Like how do you present yourself and pitch yourself and show a company, a sponsor, a stream team that you want to join, that you are worthy of that spot. And I think that you have to learn to be really good about um showcasing yourself in a very short amount of time. You only have a couple seconds, a minute to show people what you're made of. And so, when you sometimes the hardest thing is like getting the nerve to reach out to a potential sponsor. I know that in the past there have been games that I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love to be on this campaign. This is like the game that I've been looking forward to for 6 months. Like, how do I be seen by, the studio to be able to be part of the campaign launch, or, whatever it might be that you want to be a part of. And I think that, you have to really figure out what makes you different from the tens, hundreds, thousands of people that are probably applying for the same thing. Why would that company want to work with you versus somebody else? And so it's really finding out like how you would fulfill someone's needs as a creator, or how you would be able to deliver, depending on whatever they need. If it's, a viewership metric, or if it's an engagement metric, like how are you going to fulfill the needs of that company? And sometimes that can be really tough, but I think that when you take a look at yourself and what you're doing, like if you have an audience and you have a community and you have people that show up to your stream every day, there's something about you that's special, and you just have to find out what that is and learn how to be an advocate for yourself.
Exactly. I really like the comment that came through the chat here from Inmate, who says, everyone is valuable, but most people don't think about that for themselves. Like, they don't think that they're personally valuable. And each of us do bring something to space. We have a particular skill set or an ability that is truly unique to us that we can bring to the table. And think about that. Like, for those of you who are broadcasters out there watching, when you approach your show, how are you approaching it from your perspective versus what another person has done? Because there's a lot of art imitating art out there. You'll see this definitely in the VOD circuit, when people are doing shorts and stuff like that. I even see this on Twitch, where people replicate what somebody else is doing, and then people see them as just like, oh, well, that's very similar to so and so. So you have to think about for yourself, what is the individual value that you bring? And all of you do have individual value. Now, when it comes to how you present that forward, as we were just saying, being mindful towards what are the ways of which you want to showcase yourself. Like, obviously with any show on Twitch, yeah, we have some, individuals that like to troll or attempt to troll, I would rather say, in chat, or we have people who are contributing to the conversation. Both of them are bringing a value to what's happening here. They're approaching it from their brand perspective. But you also have to think about, if I am seeking opportunity, if I am seeking growth, if I am seeking a relationship with a brand, the value of which I showcase and how I present myself will affect my ability when it comes to the conversations with the brand. It's not that everybody has to be family friendly. In fact, if everybody was family friendly, we wouldn't have shows like Game of Thrones be produced and stuff like that. So think about the way that you approach your programming, and when you're seeking opportunity, that you are aligning the two very clearly in everything that you do. I would love to hear, like, have you ever had like a great brand relationship, or somebody that you established with, or even the foundations you've been working with? I think are a great example of like what you did with Thousand Dreams. of you had a value and a belief and they got on board with you? I'd love to just hear about your experience in that regard.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is really important is to get into relationships that you're super passionate about.
Mhm.
I I'm not going to be passionate about like a gamer drink, for example. So I won't because I don't drink them. So I
Mhm.
wouldn't present myself in a way that I feel they would appreciate or want it, because I'm just not passionate about it. But I am passionate about charity. I am passionate about women's causes. I am passionate about the Lupus Foundation of America because it impacts me directly. So I think that when you're looking at who you want to partner with, I think that really comes through when you really want to work with somebody, or you were really passionate about something specific. And that's kind of what happened with Thousand Dreams Fund. I mean, it made sense to partner with them being the Twitch Women's Guild leader, but I also really appreciate what they've done for the women in the community. I know so many streamers that have been directly impacted by the broadcaster grant and have been able to elevate their broadcast because they were given that chance. And I was like, okay, great. I want to do this. This is something that I'm passionate about and I want to help. And
Mm.
so connecting with them, it was months of planning and chats and calls and all these things, but we were able to really come together and find something that was really special, and that was doing an event over Women's History Month. And what's awesome about this event is that the Twitch Women's Guild members were able to directly benefit by applying to go to TwitchCon. So there was this really awesome energy throughout that event because everyone was so passionate about helping other women on the platform. And especially, events like TwitchCon are so important to a creator's journey. I have met and gotten opportunities from TwitchCon that never
Mhm.
would have come to my door if I didn't go. But it's expensive.
Yep.
It's expensive to travel. And, a lot of us, being a creator is tough. Sometimes there are months that just we don't make the revenue that we need to be able to go to a place like TwitchCon. So it was really awesome to partner with Thousand Dreams Fund because we both had a very similar mission and purpose, and we were both so passionate about it that it just made sense to come together and put together this amazing event. And now we're sending Twitch Women's Guild members to TwitchCon, which is awesome.
I love that. I love that you highlighted the concept of purpose. And this is something I speak on a lot, especially when I'm coaching broadcasters, all the clients that I've managed over the years. Even for myself, you'd mentioned like you don't participate in gamer drinks. In my history, one of the first products I released out into the marketplace was a drinkable mana potion that we ended up selling in Hot Topic and Fry's Electronics and all these things. That was one of the first products I worked on. And I'm very much, I'm even drinking my coffee today. I'm a bit of a caffeine head. So it's like for those relationships, it does align with my story. So think for yourself, like each of the stories that you've experienced and the purpose of which you drive towards as a broadcaster, ensure that like flows through all of your shows. Think about how you're representing that on social media, and really embody that, because when a person drives from a purpose, that's what causes audiences to lean in, not just passively watch. And that is something of which I think many broadcasters don't even really think about. If you ask yourself, why do I do what I do? Most people can't answer that. And so it's an exercise I challenge every broadcaster to think about. Well, why do you do what you do before you go live? Like, and then ensure that it's flowing through. I'm also sorry, Nevada, that you remember those drinks. They did not taste good, but they had 160 milligrams of caffeine and they did the job. So they were plus 160 to MP is the way we would say it back then. When it comes to like all these things you're working on, obviously like integrating, working with the communities, you're working towards all of these great causes. How do you protect your energy after each show?
Oof.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's a tough thing for us because like we'll
Okay.
end our
I might not
show and
I might not be the best person to ask about this because you know, I'm sometimes I, do what I say, not what I do. Vibes when it comes to, self-care and everything. It is very important. And I think that it's really easy to get burnt out as a creator.
Mm,
Um, because anything creative can burn you out. Even as a musician, sometimes like, you get writer's block, or you don't feel that creative energy with music, and you have to take a break from it. It's the same thing with content creation, and which is really tough, because the vibe of the community and what it's like on Twitch is the misconception is that you need to be live all the time, 8 hours a day, every day, to be able to grow. And that's just not the case. It is very, very possible to grow on any platform. You just have to be smarter about the way that you work. And I think that takes a lot of strategy and a lot of testing and a lot of risk. And sometimes it doesn't pan out. And that you can't let that get you down. You have to say, okay, this was a little bit of a mistake. We are going to course correct, and we're going to move on, and we're going to do something different and see what works. And that was one of the hardest things that I had to figure out when I first became full-time, is I felt like I had to be live 5 days a week, 6 to 8 hours. And then I found the work outside of stream was just so much more than when I was live. And then, the burnout came, and I'm like, okay, this is not a sustainable way to run my business. I need to figure something else out. So sometimes, those breaks are what you need to be able to come back rested, rejuvenated. And for me, like, I'm not comfortable taking long periods of time off, but I do make sure that I have an extra day off a week if I'm feeling burnt out or not feeling my best. And, quite often I rely on my moderator team to help push the community through while I'm maybe down for a day. Maybe they'll do like a community game night in the Discord, or we'll do a movie night or something that's less pressure, less spoon usage. And, so I think that really leaning on the people around you, like, I have the best mod team in the world. And I think that when you surround yourself with people that believe in what you do and believe in your values and the community that you want to build, then it makes it a lot easier.
No, totally. Once again, surrounding yourselves with individuals that can support you, not only in your shows, but also as the reminder of, did you eat today? Did you drink water? Those like soft reminders that oftentimes when you're in the broadcast flow, and I'm very grateful for our production on this show, that give me an opportunity. Like when they cut to you, I'm like, okay, great, I can have a drink. Like surrounding yourself with people who are mindful towards your experience to also protect the longevity of your experience. Sebastian TV commented, and they're a lovely creator, huge Pokemon creator as well. But they said getting burnout is their kryptonite. I tend to go too hard too quick. And even though I love creating, I managed to go hard for a month or two and then just collapse mentally on it. So many creators end up in this flow because they find themselves in a similar situation that you're saying, is like, I have to be live. I have to be doing 6 to 8 hours, doing all of these things. I have to keep producing. There's no other career as a creator that will put you into that flow or that belief. Like, nobody else does it. And for some reason, broadcasters on Twitch think I have to do that for success. And I like to reference often Critical Role, which is a group I worked with for many years. They do one main show, and that is their main show a week to command. And you can do similarly, internet. Like, when you think about the frequency of how much broadcasting you're doing or the shows that you're producing, keep in mind all of that additional work that you have to create to market, to let's say if you have to cut down the VODs afterwards, stuff like that. Keep time in your schedule open to do all that additional work and give people a great show. I personally would much rather see people give one great show than 10 kind of shows, like really kind of rough, like not good shows. And so think of that for yourself, of when you're doing a show, for the broadcasters out there, am I giving my best version of myself today with what I'm presenting? If not, that should be an analysis for you moving forward. Do I start to shift? Do I start to think about like giving myself some time back so I can do a better show? Lego Together, we do twice a week, shorter stream during the week and one longer during the weekend. Yeah, exactly. Anymore, I start to feel burnout, especially with balancing work. Finding that balance for you is going to be varied. There is no, and I will say this with full chest, there is no best practice when it comes to creating a live show. it really comes down to the performer. And it was something that was said on a previous Let's Chat episode of, when you show up to my show, it should be the greatest show you've ever experienced. That's what we as performers should give. And so think about, how are you doing that for your shows? I'm curious, Coco, if we could expand on the concept of burnout. Like, when you felt those periods of burnout, were there any additional things that you did for yourself to either check in or rebalance emotions or energy? Like, are there other like practices you do either post show or when you reach points like that?
I think I really lean into other creative things that I like to do. You know, Twitch is obviously a very creative endeavor that I went on, 6 years ago. But, there are other things that also fulfill me. So what I started to do is try to integrate those other things that really energized me and kind of incorporated them into my Twitch stream. So I was strictly gaming for 2 to 3 years. And then I was like, okay, I really miss playing music. And then, the pandemic, right? So I was like, okay, can't play live anymore. Okay, how can we integrate this in? And so then I started dabbling with music streams, and then started getting a little bit creative with that. We used to do theme shows. So like one time we did Valentimo. So we did all emo songs and dressed up in like emo gear, but like Valentine's Day themed, which was super fun. Yeah, we had a great time with it. And then we did hip hoppity Easter, where we did like 90s R&B and hip hop songs. So it was like a new avenue where I was still with my community and doing the things I need to do on Twitch, but kind of doing things a little bit differently, trying new things. And it just kind of gave me a little bit more energy to keep doing what I love to do. And we weren't doing these all the time. They were special events. They were happening every 2, 3, 6 months. So it was just something to look forward to that I think really drove me to continue doing what I'm doing, but in a different way. It's the same thing with, I really enjoy cross stitching, which is kind of like a really, really weird hobby, but I love cross stitching video game characters. And so I would do that off a stream when I was decompressing for the night, watching a movie or a show. And so I was like, well, maybe the community would like to see me do that. So I started cross stitching on stream, and people love it. It's like totally different from my normal content. It's vibey. We just chat. I just cross stitch. I don't know. I was cross stitching a Tomberry the other day. So it was something that was just different from my normal content. It was great for me because it was a new experience. And so I think that taking a lot of things that energize me off a stream and bringing them into Twitch keeps things fresh, and it gives the community insight on what my life is like outside of Twitch. And it's a great way for me to still fulfill the needs of my business, but also preventing severe burnout.
Yeah,
So
and I'm seeing
that's how I became super variety. Became super variety because I was just kept adding different things to my stream.
But you're creating these events, like you're creating it into a moment of, okay, I know that we're in a regular flow. Let's just say, for example, I'm playing a game nonstop for 30 days, and I need to switch it up just for my own mentality. I need to step outside of playing Scarlet Violet, for example, with Pokemon was a big one for me at the start of the year. Of completing the decks and finding all the mysteries and stuff like that. And I found, by segmenting and having like a one-off stream, like the most random one I did on my show was literally just measuring stuff in my office. I took out a tape measure. My community loved it. I don't know why they loved it, but they just like seeing me walk around with a tape measure and measure things in my office. So it was just like infusing these little moments of change can not only revitalize you personally, but also revitalize the community around I did not expect that to occur, which is one of the glories of live. You did mention the business thing, and I wanted to bring up a question from Squeaks, who wrote here, what has worked best for you in terms of managing the financial aspects and what you may need to earn alongside burnout, whether it's part-time or full-time streaming? So for balancing the money component, and I know a lot of individuals were also mentioning, balancing work life work being either full-time job, there's obviously the life component, and then there's the broadcaster component. So some of us are balancing all three in that regard. Are there any things that you have found provide you like that sustainability or like long-term thinking when it comes to money?
Yeah, financials really tough as a content creator, because it's not a steady paycheck, right? So,
Yeah.
you have to be really good with your money, and you have to budget, and you have to really break down what do your expenses look like every month? How much do I need to make to break even? Like, you really need to track that. And for me, the most beneficial thing was multiple revenue streams. So I
Mm.
cannot depend on Twitch subs because they change every month. I cannot depend on tips because they change every month. So it's like, how can
Mhm.
I add other revenue streams? Maybe one of the best things is sponsorships. That's guaranteed money. So doing your research on the companies that, maybe it's these agencies that do all these big launch campaigns. Like, do you know who they are? Are you familiar with who runs those campaigns? Like, who are the community
Mhm.
managers? Do you follow them on Twitter? Are you signing up for these campaigns? Like, I am a huge supporter of creators getting paid for their work, so sponsorships are a great way. The cross stitches that I do, I offered my community an off service, like off Twitch subscription service if they want my cross stitches. If they sign up for the subscription, I will send them a cross stitch every 3 months that they are sub to me. So there are so many creative ways to get extra revenue that isn't dependent solely on Twitch. And as you start to branch out onto other platforms, you'll start to see that like your revenue on Twitch will also increase because you're bringing more people to your streams. I also am very transparent with my journey as a content creator. I don't think it's a bad thing to talk about the financial struggles of a content creator. You are providing entertainment. This is the entertainment business. You're providing an entertainment for someone. Like, no one goes to a concert at Staples Center and doesn't pay to get in, right? So,
Mhm.
not that you should tell people that they absolutely have to pay for your content, but I think it's okay to say like, hey, this is my job. This is my sub goal for the month. Like, if we hit it, then I will be able to make rent, or maybe I'll be able to get that new camera that to elevate my content, or whatever it might be. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. And I like that you're touching on the concept of diversifying your revenue streams. And this is something that I experienced firsthand when I was a full-time YouTuber. Back in those days, it was difficult to get monetization to begin with in the early days of the partner program on YouTube. And a lot of algorithm shifts were starting to come into play. And we'd see waves of creators, the vloggers, then there'd be cover musicians, and we'd see the algorithm shifting constantly. But the one that really hit hard, Nintendo at one point had introduced their creator program and demonetized all existing Nintendo content on YouTube. So literally a major portion, because I was only YouTube at that time, my revenue was now gone. And that had forced me into a position to have to diversify my offerings and find other opportunities to, secure sponsorships or take on part-time work or editing or what have you. So rather than finding yourself in a situation where you're like, oh crap, that revenue stream is now gone, that was everything for me, start thinking for your business as broadcasters. You need to build a pie chart for yourself of portion comes from here, portion comes from here. And this is for just those of you who think of this as a business or are pursuing this as a business. We know there's lots of hobbyists when it comes to broadcasting as well, and just want to share their love of a game or chatting or talking about things. That is completely fine too. This part of the conversation is really for just those who are thinking about it in terms of business. Now, in addition to revenue capital, there's the additional elements of capital that we have to also think about. There's social capital. How much can I ask of my peers or have them trust and support me in? That's a social capital aspect. There's your mental capital. You only have so much that you can process in your brain in a given day. How much are you expending of that for the return of which you're getting when it comes to either outputting content or putting stuff on social? Another element of capital outside of revenue, and those two I mentioned, is time. We all have basically the same amount of time as an independent creator. So being mindful of how you're spending your time for the return is something you should analyze. I saw some people were commenting like, "Oh, well, I had reduced the amount I was broadcasting to a sustainable cadence so then I could focus on these additional things." That's pivoting and using your time wisely. And so really think about the amount of time that you have given your other obligations in life and commit to that. Don't overcommit or try to overextend the time, because that's literally the only form of capital that you don't get back. And so really think about that as you're approaching what you're creating. Coco, I'm curious, from like all the variety of content that you've created over the years, what has felt the most fulfilling to you?
That is a hard question, because I think all the different types of content that I've done fulfilled me in different ways. So like my speed runs, I'm so competitive. I think the best competition is being in competition with yourself. So that is great for me. I love it. When I get a new PB, it is like I'm on cloud 9 for like weeks, because it just feels like an accomplishment. I love being able to feel like I accomplished something. And the same thing with gaming too. When I finish a game on stream, I'm like, yes, I did it, especially tough games like Souls games and things like that. But then there's the music side that really fulfills me in a much different way. It's like that I feel is when I'm most creative and I can take the most risk. I have always been very self-conscious when I do music. I was never professionally trained. Everything I know, I taught myself. And when I'm on stream, when I play live with bands, or I don't sing. I play bass and I'm in the back. I'm vibing. I'm having a great time. But on stream, I have to switch to guitar, which is not my best instrument, and I have to sing. And I'm not a vocalist. I'm not, but it's something that's like pushing. I believe that if you're uncomfortable, you're growing, and I'm very uncomfortable when I'm doing that on stream. So that's like a completely different way of fulfilling me, where I feel like I'm getting a lot of like personal growth and confidence growth when I'm playing music on stream, because plus my community is like, they're my biggest cheerleaders. They totally hype me up. So and then there's stuff like cross stitching, where I feel like I'm creating art that people can appreciate and love. And if they end up getting a piece, like that's something they'll have forever. So I just think that when you're like creating content, like it's okay to find fulfillment in different things, and like really lean into what you're feeling in that moment. Like sometimes I'm just like, what, I really just want to try and get a PB today, and I want to speed run, like I'm in that mood. But sometimes I just want to vibe and cross stitch. So I think it's okay to look at what you enjoy doing in that moment too. I know sometimes as creators, we feel pressured to do what our audience is going to want us to do. And sometimes we can get caught in that, well, I really don't want to, I'd much rather do this, but I get the same viewership if I do this versus this. And I think that sometimes we need to lean in things that make us happy and are what going to make us feel good on stream, because you'll put forward your best content that way.
I agree. It reminds me of something my mentor back in university had said to me, along the lines of, if you're not terrified about a project that you've yet to launch, and you're just choosing something that feels safe or comfortable, you're doing then the wrong project. You want to choose the one that might feel a little bit scary to you. And that's not me saying, hey, go do something that you're not by any means capable of doing and throwing yourself into that mix. There's challenges with that. But like, if, just as you're mentioning, not a vocalist, I'm pushing a little bit into that territory, or playing guitar. Okay, I'm comfortable with bass. Okay, I'm adding a string. Like, this is starting to add some complications in tone. I think those are good things to push for yourself, because growth in broadcast is not just viewers, it's not just revenue. It's also personal growth. By you broadcasting, if you're a brand new affiliate or you're a brand new broadcaster, part of it is growing your chops when it comes to performance, the ability to communicate with your audience and carry a show, how you're playing the game and bettering yourself in playing the game. There's different ways to find growth for yourself beyond just the viewership. And know that, and this will tie to actually a question that I saw here in the chat of, you as a person will change based on seasons. You will have a period of interest where you are really focused in on something. You'll see viewer growth in that area. For me, that obviously at the start of the year, that was Pokemon. I was heavy into Pokemon. Now I'm pivoting into some other games, like I'm playing Like a Dragon, I'm playing Stellar Blade. I know that audiences will transfer in and out. Dedicated viewers who are there for me will come to support, but allow yourself to change with seasonality. And it actually ties to, there was a question from Talk to Me Goose. I just wish I understood how ad revenue functions, with Twitch, or like how the ad economy works. The ad economy functions on seasonality. Almost everybody has to prep for rough months start of a year. January is not a good spending month when it comes to the marketplace. Brand advertisers are not buying things. They're in the process of building their plans for the rest of the year at that time. And then as we push towards, November, December, holidays, when you see all these marketing campaigns, that's when dollars are really flowing into the space. So preparing yourself for those fluctuations is part of the projections you do as a creator. So prepare yourself for that and think about the content you're going to launch at those times.
I would love to
Yeah.
add to that, because I think that goes with everything, with your content and your stream. Like, you need to look at what's happening in the world. You need to look what's happening in the gaming spaces. Like, a really great example is when GDQ is happening, I don't speedrun. I can't. There's no one who's going to watch me.
Yeah.
They're all going to be watching GDQ. So during GDQ weeks, I don't speedrun. So you have to be really aware of what's happening in the market. You have to be really aware of what's happening IRL, like in the real world, at current events. You need to know what's happening in schools, like, are schools out for the summer? Like, what holidays are coming up? All that stuff is so important. Just like if you were running a store, right? A store on the side of the street. I always love this analogy because it's true. You do have to treat your stream like you were running a store. You're investing in a store, and you have to make sales so you can stay afloat. And I think that, you look at, if your store is on a busy street near the beach over the summer, you're obviously going to put more resources into your store during the summer. And that's something that you should do with your stream as well. Like, what kind of content do you do? What outside of your content is going to impact the people that come into your stream? Is there something that's going to draw people away? Then maybe you try something different and you take a risk.
Yeah.
That's really, really important.
You're talking about the storefront. I talk about this on a few of the shows, and I saw a question regarding. They were asking Kawaii Guy, like, how many individuals transferred from your YouTube business to your Twitch business, and it's a very small percent, honestly, because the brand of which I represented on YouTube, I was sketch comedy with 5-second films and Saturday morning breakfast cereal, which is a web comic that we turned live action, and so the fans of that content, of the comedy content, are not necessarily interested in watching me play games or have a deep dive into movie theory on my channel. So segments of audience are fine, but when it comes to direct transfers from all of the different services that you'll be promoting to, if the brands are different that you're presenting, anticipate that, like, the customer, if we think of it as a storefront, they're going to shop at my Nike on YouTube. They're coming here to shop at my GameStop on Twitch. Like, they have different perspectives and different wants from what I'm presenting. The most holistic way, if you want to look at your business of how can I unite the viewership, is ensuring that you, as the storefront, are displaying yourself in the same way or in the same tone from the same purpose on all of these outlets. So if you're crap talking constantly on Twitter, and I see this, most of my followers don't follow me on Twitter because I'll get into deep conversations about Twitch and viewership and theories about the digital space. They're like, that's work, John. We don't want work, John. We want Kawaii Guy. And so they follow me in those other spaces. Just think about, like, if you want the cross transfer, to have your brand unified on those fronts. I'm curious, from your experience, Coco, have you found any services to be of best benefit to your stream? Obviously, you mentioned Discord is like continuing the conversations and having a community in there, but have you found other services that help with the growth of your show?
Discord is probably the main one. A lot of people uh have come to me from Twitter, believe it or not, or X, sorry, X. It'll always be Twitter in my mind.
I still call it Twitter. Twitter.com still works as a URL, so
Yes,
it
okay.
still exists.
Because a lot of the things that I experience as a content creator, but I'm also very open about my health journey, because I am, disabled and chronically ill. So I often talk about my experience with that and content creation, because sometimes it could be a struggle putting in the hours in content creation while also being sick. So I talk about that stuff a lot. And so a lot of people from my socials come to my stream because, like, hey, I saw your tweet about, A, B, and C, and that really resonated with me. So I'm here. And then we opened up a conversation about what that tweet was about. Maybe it was about, chronic illness or lupus or, whatever. And so I do believe in, putting yourself out there on different platforms. Ko-fi has been really great for me to do my cross stitching, my little side business of cross stitching. And so, and a lot of that stuff really all ties into my Twitch is my home, and it's where I do a majority of my content. I just love being here, and I would never leave. But I think there are ways to use other platforms or services to either bring people in or offer your audience on Twitch something extra that maybe you can monetize, or maybe it's just extra content to thank them for being a sub on Twitch. There's so many things that you can do. And then, of course, there's diversifying on other platforms, to help bring people in. Like, I know a lot of creators that use TikTok to bring people into their streams. They use Twitch clips and things and put them over there. So there are an infinite amount of ways that you can use other platforms to your advantage here, whether it's to expand what you're already doing on Twitch, or it's to draw in a new audience, or if it's to do something completely different. I know people who do ASMR on YouTube, but then their Twitch content is the complete opposite, and that works for them. Honestly, it's about taking risks and seeing what works for you, because for every person it's different.
Exactly. So I'd say, as part of this, exercise, as each of you like go back to broadcasting and what you're creating for the day, think about each of the services that you're distributing to and what is the best use of your time when it comes to that. Thinking about, obviously, mindfulness towards, if you obviously maintain full-time job or a part-time job, in addition, life, family balance, ensuring that you're not losing the relationships in the process of what you're continuing to work towards, and then utilizing your time most effectively is really a key that we're trying to highlight here when it comes to when you broadcast, how much you're putting out on social, how much you're putting into your VOD work, and just pay attention to the returns, because as long as you are continuing to create in the space, and I say the same thing for like actors who are first getting into Los Angeles or Hollywood and they're like, I'm trying to break in, it's like, if you keep working on your craft, it will come. If you continue to better yourself, it will come. If you're figuring out the ways to present yourself in a way that's unified, it will come. So just as a reminder of, patience is a major part when it comes to experiencing the benefit. And I guess the unfortunate reality is we do get a lot of no's as creators. We get more no's than we get yeses. So also just preparing yourself for that, and compartmentalizing it and not letting it detract from the journey of which you want to do. Thinking about that is a key element. Coco, I'd love to like talk about, like, I see a lot of conversation in the chat happening about, or at least I saw a few comments talking about the concept of how people present themselves, like, I'm a business first, I'm here for money, versus I know some people can lean into almost, it develops into eventually parasocial relationships where people are like pretending to be friends or trying to form that aspect. I guess, how do you think about that in terms of like striking the balance between expectation of what the audience is going to receive from you? I guess I'd love your thoughts on this.
Yeah. Everybody in my community knows that I do this full time. I'm extremely transparent about, this is my job. So I do set boundaries. You have to, especially when it comes to like what what is going to protect me and my mental well-being and my physical well-being as well. And I am very clear that yes, we can talk about these things on stream or in the Discord, but you do not have consent to get to me anywhere else. Like you don't like, you can't DM me, like that's what the Discord's for. You can't come into a stream and start trauma dumping when we are talking about something completely different. So, and I do have those conversations like, hey, this isn't the time for it, let's move on, or let's talk about this another time. But I think setting those boundaries are really, really important. And I do talk about my issues with parasocial relationships like right now I'm dealing with a situation at the moment where someone is not understanding that I am a human, I am a person, and I have a life outside a stream, and that my life can't 100% revolve around being live all the time. Like I need to take care of things IRL as well. And this person doesn't understand that and thinks that I should be available all the time, or that I am some sort of I don't know, circus animal that is supposed to, that's my job. And that is my purpose, is to just be a performer for people. And that's not the case. There are very real humans behind creators that go through the same struggles as everybody else does. We have to take care of who we are. We have to take care of our mental health. We have to make sure we're eating right and sleeping enough. And we have to make sure we are doing things that fulfill us outside of stream. Like the work-life balance is really, really important, or else you start to lose yourself as a person, and then you can't put forth the best content. But there are some people that see us every day. They see our faces, they see us interacting with people, and we don't see that back. So there's already an imbalance of the expectation of that relationship. Like the way that we are interacting with each other is very, very different. And sometimes that can be confusing to people, or it gives people the wrong idea of how available we should be, need to be, or want to be to our communities and to the digital space as a whole.
Yeah, and actually, Cineron said something that is true. What you're speaking of, everyone goes through, not just creators. That's what we're saying, is acknowledging every person, all of you. I assume all of you are human. As I stare at the chat, I'm like, which of you are AI? That we are all people that come with all of our personal experiences, and it's the same thing on the broadcaster front. And being respectful of both space, for the space for you as a viewer, the space for us as broadcasters. It's a mindfulness that if we can acknowledge it and acknowledge which space we do bring things into, like we got a good clarification on what trauma dumping is. If you went to a concert, let's say Coco's up there on stage playing bass, you're not going to walk into a venue seeing a performance happening on stage and just start shouting about what's going on personally in your life. You enjoy the show. Maybe there's an opportunity to have a conversation after, but I don't know, maybe some. But it's very rare for that to happen. And so treating the live spaces on Twitch similarly and acknowledging that we're human is a good way to think forward for yourself, and also with how you interact with folks. So Coco, we're rapidly approaching the end of today's show, but I would love to have you impart your wisdom on, for let's say a person is trying to find their footing. They could be a new broadcaster, or maybe they had fallen into, we were talking about burnout. What is a point of advice you could give to folks here to have them really think about before they go live the next time?
We talked a lot about purpose earlier, and I think that one of the things that I tell people, especially getting into streaming, or they want to grow, or they want to do something more than just a hobby, I always tell them, like, what do you want to be known for? What do you stand for? What are the things that when people say, if people say, oh, CocoConfession, this is what they say about you. And I think that is a really, really important to know. And it's hard, and that might change over time, and that's okay. But you still need to be you need to really stay true to what you want to be known for. And over the years, you know, it's changed for me. I just wanted to be like a casual gamer hanging out with friends on Twitch. And then it changed into, oh, I want to be known as like a really good gamer. I'm going to play all these hard games and then I'm going to speed run. And I want to be known for my skill. And then I was like, but that didn't really work either. It wasn't quite me. And then it kind of transitioned into, I want to be an advocate. I want to be a charity streamer. I want to give back, and I want to create spaces where people can be unapologetically themselves, and that fit. It doesn't mean I'm not still a speedrunner and a try-hard gamer sometimes and all that. Like, that's incorporated in that, but it's evolved over time, and that's okay. But I don't think that you can really put forward a product that has a voice or has a personality until you know what that is. So I always tell people to really self-reflect on things like that. Like, what do you want to be known for?
I love that. I love that. And I'll give the example to the chat. You know, I have said for, you know, the past, you know, 20 years of my career, I want the world to suck less. Everything I do is, you know, to make the world suck less. There's a lot of bad things out there. What can I do to just make it a little bit better? So that's one of the approaches I make. And I always end every single one of my shows on my main channel with have a great today and an even better tomorrow. Yes, we have the challenges of each and every day, and we all have those. But do your best to have a great today and know that tomorrow is going to be better. Projecting forward saying it's going to be rough, it will likely be rough. If you look for the bad, you will find the bad. So I approach every space with that. And it's very good to think for yourself, what is the purpose you bring to this world and how to make it better. I appreciate you being here, Coco. I really love this conversation. I love all the chatters joining in on the conversation as well. Where can people find you next? What are you doing next show wise? I know you're taking a little bit of a breather coming out of a huge weekend.
We did a huge, it's the biggest event for lupus research and education and advocacy. We did this last weekend. So your girl's a little tired, but we raised a buttload of money for charity. So that's all that matters. I will be live on Thursday evening. Probably do speed runs. I'm actually going for the world record in Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle 2, so might be a speed run day. Really want that world record. I want one world record under my belt at least once in my life. So that's what we're doing. Probably on Thursday. But right now I'm doing lots of speed runs. I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom, which has been really, really fun. And doing like cross stitching and stuff. Probably do a music stream in June, so I'm excited for that. I got to get practicing, but
it'll be fantastic. I want to make sure I'm going to toss a shout out for Coco's channel here in the chat. And actually, Coco, I need your help finding out who we're going to raid and send the love on to from this show. So if you can help me identify that, that would be huge.
Yeah.
So there we go. Make sure you give Coco a follow, everybody. They're absolutely incredible. And on my channel, as I mentioned, I'll be playing Stellar Blade all throughout the week. We got some more Pokemon challenges that'll be happening on that front. So lots of games to look forward to on twitch.tv/Kawaii Guy. And Coco, do we have somebody potentially here? Oh, I'm getting the DM from Coco. Let's take a look. See. Oh, love it. Okay, great. Let me type in the raid command here. 1 second, y'all. Potatosaurus. Tell me about Potatosaurus. What can we expect going into
here? Is a variety streamer. I love, she does a lot of Souls-like games. She loves the challenge games, but she also builds Lego on her channel a lot too. So she does a little bit of everything. Right now she's doing Baldur's Gate 3 and it's been super fun to watch. She has an incredible personality and her community is top tier. So I think that's a great person to go raid.
Amazing. All right, let's see. Did it activate? Do we have the raid queue? Are y'all seeing a raid queue popping up yet? I'm waiting for it. Well, we'll get that activated. Hold tight, internet. We're going to raid out to Potatosaurus. I appreciate you once again, Coco. Lots to come with the Women's Guild and all your efforts on that front. So really appreciate you. And to all of you who were watching today, have a great day and even better tomorrow. I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.